Imagine a moment when one of the world's greatest powers tried to control another nation, only to have every plan backfire in the most shocking way. Secrets, strategies, and unseen forces collided as America aimed to weaken India, but what happened next will leave you speechless. The twist is not in what was planned, but in how quietly, yet completely, the tables turned. Watch closely, because every second of this story reveals a shocking reversal that no one saw coming. The studio lights burned white and unforgiving. The air smelled of hot cables and fresh makeup. Piers Morgen sat upright, fingers tight around a ceramic mug. The mug trembled, barely, against his palm. Across the glass wall, producers watched without blinking. Screens glowed with maps, charts, and a single red headline. The silence felt heavier than sound. Piers Morgen cleared his throat, yet the dryness stayed. He sensed something had shifted, like a floor pulling away. A low hum from the cameras crawled into his ears. The headline spoke of America and India, locked in a quiet storm. Trade routes. Diplomatic pressure. A plan whispered in corridors. Piers Morgen felt the room shrink. His chair pressed hard against his spine. The words on the teleprompter changed without warning. He blinked once, then again. America had tried to bend India. Sanctions, influence, subtle force wrapped in polite language. The script suggested confidence. The facts suggested collapse. A producer lifted a hand, then froze. The red recording light flicked on. Heat rushed to Piers Morgen's face. He smelled ozone and fear. His voice began steady, trained, controlled. Each sentence landed heavier than the last. Markets reacted before speeches finished. Allies hesitated. India stood still, unyielding, silent. That silence echoed louder than threats. Piers Morgen felt a strange pressure behind his eyes. He imagined crowded streets in Delhi at dawn. Horns blaring. Vendors shouting. A nation breathing together. The contrast struck him like cold water. America moved pieces on a board. India refused to be a piece. The mug slipped slightly in his hand. Coffee splashed onto the desk, dark and spreading. No one moved to clean it. The stain looked like a shadow growing. Piers Morgen tasted bitterness, metal and regret. Numbers rolled across the screen. Losses. Reversals. Unexpected alliances. The plan had turned inward. America lost leverage. America lost face. The studio felt colder now. The lights no longer warmed his skin. His heartbeat sounded too loud in his ears. A director mouthed words he could not hear. The teleprompter scrolled faster. Evidence stacked upon evidence. Each line struck like a quiet blow. The narrative collapsed in real time. Piers Morgen felt the shock settle in his chest. Not explosive. Crushing. The realization crept slowly. This was not a debate. This was exposure. A nation underestimated. A strategy undone. Outside, thunder rolled faintly over the city. The studio windows rattled. Piers Morgen paused his breath, eyes fixed ahead. He sensed history leaning forward. Waiting. The next sentence hovered on his tongue as the screen flashed one final update and the room seemed to tilt as he began to say. The next sentence burned as it formed. His lips moved before doubt could stop them. America had pushed. India had absorbed the force. And the impact rebounded with precision. The studio clock ticked louder now. Each second felt stretched thin. Piers Morgen felt sweat gather at his collar. The fabric clung to his neck. Breathing felt deliberate, measured, watched. The screens shifted again. Graphs plunged like falling elevators. A sharp intake of breath rippled through the control room. Someone whispered a name, then fell silent. Piers Morgen's eyes flicked sideways. A producer stared back, face pale, jaw rigid. The realization deepened. This loss was public. This loss was undeniable. India had rerouted trade overnight. Ports buzzed while others emptied. Currencies responded like startled birds. The air vibrated with tension. Piers Morgen's chest tightened as if the room pressed inward. He imagined closed-door meetings in Washington. Voices raised. Hands slammed on polished tables. plans unraveling mid-sentence. Meanwhile, India moved calmly. No dramatic statements. No desperate gestures. Only action. That calm unsettled him most. The camera lens felt closer now. Its glass eye unblinking. Judging. Recording every micro-expression. Piers' Morgen tongue felt thick. Words required effort. The taste of coffee lingered sour. Another update appeared. American companies pulling back. Indian partnerships expanding eastward. Southward. Every direction except retreat. A low rumble passed through the studio. Air conditioning kicked harder. The chill raised goosebumps along his arms. Piers' Morgen voice dropped, slower, heavier. This was not a clash of weapons. This was pressure and patience. One side rushed. The other waited. He felt a pulse behind his eyes. Images flooded his mind. Indian engineers at sunrise. Farmers standing firm in dust and heat. Negotiators silent across long tables. A nation accustomed to endurance. The studio smelled faintly of burnt dust. Electronics strained under constant use. So did nerves. A director wiped his forehead with shaking fingers. No one spoke. The silence screamed. Piers Morgen felt the story slipping beyond control. This was larger than commentary. This was consequence. He leaned slightly forward. The chair creaked beneath him. Every sound felt amplified. America had expected submission. Instead, it faced reflection. A mirror held steady, showing miscalculation in brutal clarity. Another graphic flashed. Global opinion shifting. Confidence draining from familiar power centers. Piers Morgen's stomach tightened. The discomfort deepened into something colder. Recognition. This moment would be replayed. Studied. Quoted. He swallowed slowly. The studio lights dimmed a fraction. Or perhaps his vision blurred. He could not tell. Outside, rain began tapping against glass. Soft at first. Then harder. Each drop sounded like a countdown. Piers Morgen inhaled sharply. His next words hovered again, heavy with implication, as the screen updated once more and the balance of power seemed to shift another inch while he continued to speak, aware that the shock had only begun to unfold. The shock thickened in the air. Piers Morgen felt it settle into his bones. His shoulders stiffened as if bracing against impact. The rain outside grew louder, more insistent. Each drop struck the glass with purpose. Inside the studio, no one blinked. The screen refreshed again. Another confirmation. Another reversal. America had misread resolve as weakness. India had answered with silence and structure. Piers Morgen's heartbeat slowed, then thudded hard. The sensation traveled up his throat. His mouth tasted dry, almost chalky. He continued speaking, voice steady by habit alone. Every word felt heavier than the last. The control room lights reflected off anxious eyes. No smiles. No signals to wrap up. Only the quiet demand to go on. Piers Morgen's fingers pressed into the desk. The surface felt cold and smooth. Too solid. Too real. Another image appeared. Ships docking under foreign flags. Warehouses opening where pressure once stood. Supply lines bending away from expectation. The loss was no longer theoretical. It was measurable, countable, visible. Piers Morgen sensed discomfort spreading like a slow fever. Not panic. Something worse. Awareness. This outcome had been avoidable. Yet now it stood undeniable. He imagined late-night calls crossing oceans. Voices lowered. Assurances failing. Meanwhile, India remained composed. No raised fists. No dramatic warnings. Only movement, deliberate and irreversible. The studio air felt thinner. Breathing required focus. A faint ringing touched his ears. He adjusted his posture, searching for control. The camera captured everything. The tightening jaw. The pause between breaths. The weight behind his eyes. Piers Morgen glanced at the clock. Time moved forward, indifferent. This moment would not rewind. Another data stream rolled in. Allies recalculating. Neutral states leaning quietly east. The balance shifted not with noise but with gravity. Piers' Morgen chest rose slowly. He felt the discomfort deepen. This was not humiliation. This was exposure to consequence. The studio lights flickered once. A technician froze, then steadied his hands. No one spoke. The silence demanded continuation. Piers' Morgen voice softened, edged with gravity. America had reached outward. India had stood grounded. The result echoed across markets and ministries alike. Outside, thunder cracked louder now. The sound rolled through the building. A low vibration passed beneath his feet. Piers' Morgen paused only long enough to breathe. He knew the audience felt it too. The unease. The slow realization. Power did not always announce itself. Sometimes it simply endured. The screen prepared another update. Numbers foaming. Connections redrawing. Piers' Morgen leaned closer to the microphone. The story was no longer about intent. It was about outcome. And as his next words gathered weight, the room seemed to hold its breath again, waiting for the full scale of the loss to become clear as he continued speaking into the growing tension, aware that the consequences were still unfolding in real time. The tension pressed harder with every breath. Piers' Morgen felt it crawl along his spine. The microphone stood inches from his mouth. It waited, patient and merciless. He spoke again, slower now. Each syllable landed like a measured step. The screen behind him shifted color. Red gave way to deep blue. A visual reversal no one expected. A producer lowered his head slightly. Not in defeat. In disbelief. Piers' Morgen eyes burned from staring. He refused to look away. This moment demanded witness. New figures appeared. American leverage thinning. Indian influence widening. Quiet corridors filling with hurried footsteps. He imagined offices half-lit at midnight. Phones vibrating on polished desks. Advisors rereading the same lines again and again. Searching for a mistake that did not exist. The studio felt smaller now. Walls closer. Ceiling heavier. Piers' Morgen chest expanded with a deep inhale. The air felt cold going in. Sharper coming out. He sensed the audience leaning forward somewhere far away. Living rooms silent. Eyes fixed. This was not spectacle. This was discomfort made visible. India had not shouted. India had not threatened. India had simply refused to move. That refusal changed everything. The control room glass reflected rigid faces. Hands hovered above switches. No one dared interrupt. Another update rolled through. Strategic routes bypassed. Contracts rewritten overnight. The cost climbed without drama. Without apology. Piers' Morgen felt a dull ache settle behind his ribs. Not pain. Pressure. The kind that comes with understanding too late. He adjusted his tie. The fabric felt tighter than before. Sweat cooled along his temple. His voice dropped another register. America had expected reaction. India delivered inevitability. The word hung in the air. Inevitability. It carried weight. Outside, rain lashed harder. Wind pushed against the building. The storm mirrored the shift inside the studio. Unavoidable. Relentless. The camera light glowed red. Unblinking. Piers' Morgen felt exposed beneath it. Every breath recorded. Every pause amplified. Another graphic appeared. Global confidence indices tilting. Long-trusted assumptions dissolving. The discomfort in the room deepened. No one smiled now. No one whispered. Only the hum of machines remained. Piers' Morgen hands relaxed slightly. Acceptance replacing resistance. This was happening. This had happened. He imagined history books rewriting a paragraph. A quiet footnote growing into a chapter. America had reached too far. India had stood too firm. The imbalance corrected itself. The studio lights seemed harsher again. Or perhaps his senses sharpened. He felt the desk edge under his fingertips. Solid. Unforgiving. Real. Another message flashed briefly. Then vanished. Its implication lingered. This was not recovery. This was recalibration. Piers Morgen swallowed slowly. His throat felt tight. The moment pressed forward, demanding continuation, demanding truth. As he leaned slightly closer and drew breath for the next line, the room remained suspended in that heavy awareness, knowing the story was still unfolding and the full weight of the loss had yet to settle as he continued speaking into the unrelenting quiet. The final update arrived without warning. The screen settled into stillness. No flashing alerts. No urgent revisions. Only confirmation. Piers Morgen exhaled slowly. The tension eased, not vanished, only understood. His shoulders lowered for the first time. The studio felt quieter now. Not empty. Resolved. He looked straight into the camera. The red light no longer felt hostile. Just present. His voice carried calm weight. America had acted with force. India had responded with endurance. The outcome spoke for itself. No victory speech. No celebration. Only consequence. The rain outside softened to a steady rhythm. The storm had passed its peak. Inside, the air felt clearer. Producers finally moved. Screens dimmed one by one. The hum faded. Piers Morgen placed the mug down carefully. The stain remained on the desk. A reminder. He nodded once, subtle and final. History had marked this moment. Not with noise. With balance restored. The camera light dimmed. The broadcast ended. And the silence that followed felt complete. Imagine a moment when one of the world's greatest powers tried to control another nation, only to have every plan backfire in the most shocking way. Secrets, strategies, and unseen forces collided as America aimed to weaken India, but what happened next will leave you speechless. The twist is not in what was planned, but in how quietly, yet completely, the tables turned. Watch closely, because every second of this story reveals a shocking reversal that no one saw coming.